Hi, my name is Carol Francis. Our guest today has had a number of firsts. She won a scholarship to the Women's Girls' School in the 1940s and was first in the school in literature in the Senior Cambridge examination, that's the school leaving certificate examination. She was one of the youngest teachers on record as she began teaching language and literature at age 14 at Melgrove High School to students, some of whom were the same age and older. She was a founding member and later soloist and choreographer of the celebrated Ivy Baxter Modern Creative Dance Group. In 1951, she made a household name of Putus, the role she played for 4 years with the late Randy Williams in the groundbreaking radio drama, The Morgan Henrys. In that series, Jamaicans heard their own Jamaican language spoken on mainstream radio in a sustained fashion for the first time. My guest is a living legend who is also an ageless beauty, Alma Mock-Yen. Welcome to Morning Coffee, guest.
You're a riot. Thank you, ma'am.
Now, Mrs. Mock-Yen, we said ageless beauty because from 1945 you won a beauty contest at that age.
Yes, I was Miss YWCA. But my sister was also Miss Star Pinup. I have two sisters, both of whom are deceased. So I'm just telling mass death, don't come near me. And if you call me, I'll be in the ladies' room. Sorry.
You're 90. I tell people you're 90, they tell me I'm lying. And they say they want to see a birth certificate. I'm trying to make up stories. And so, but you are 90, you are sharp as a tack. I mean, you outwalked me coming up the stairs. You know, that is how good. How have you managed to maintain the beauty, the energy, the wit, the vigor? How? What do you think accounts for that?
Determination. I grew up with a wonderful grandfather. Both my parents died early. My father died when I was 5. My mother died when I was 15. But I didn't really grow with her. But Grandpa, now he was a character. He died at 98. His ambition was to live to be 100. He didn't quite make it. He had cancer. So, but that pluck, you know, he kept saying, don't complain to me about work hard and teacher this and teacher that. It's left to you. You must know what you want to do. You must know how far you want to go. And I guess that has kind of stuck with me. Sometimes I don't know how far it is I should go, and I overplay my hand. But one thing I've learned in life is get up, brush yourself off, and carry on. You know, nobody is going to remember the mistakes in 5 years' time.
Yeah, that's true. You know, we started out by talking about the fact that you have had a series of firsts. You have created a lot of avenues for different persons. I will look at the Harborview dancers. Some of the leading persons in art and theatre today came out of Harborview dancers, which you started. For example, Anthony Steins, Jackie Gass.
Yes. I started in the backyard. Actually, I left Ivy Baxter's group just at the time when her group was kind of pulling apart and Rex was on the horizon and the NDTC was about to become. And I moved into a new area, Harborview, 1,000 houses, no cultural means of anything. So I thought, well, if I can't go to Tom Red Camp to dance, then I'll dance in my own backyard. And I started this thing with little children because they were the ones who had the greatest difficulty going from here to Tom Red Camp, which is where the center of culture was at the time. Still is, I think. And that I don't know, I started with 3 little children, friends' little children. And in a fortnight, I had like 15 little children, and I wondered where on earth all these children came from. And the thing just went so fast that I said, maybe the older ones need something too. So I set up bars, metal bars, paved the area. I had a bigger lot than most because they measured it on the front, and so it took a wide sweep at the back. So the backyard was pretty spacious. And I started this thing again with about 5 older ones. And Antoinette, she used to stand at the gate, she was 10, and peep and beg her mother to allow her to come. But she was a little young, she was kind of in between, too old for the babies, too young for the older ones. But her mother let her come. Her mother was an excellent photographer, so I not only got Antoinette, but I got a dance group photographer as well. And she danced with the little ones, took the Royal Academy ballet exams, and then danced in the evening with the older ones. She, like me, is a determined son of a gun. So that was Antoinette. I also had Jackie Guy, and he has always been very grateful, always mentioning that his beginning was in the backyard in Harborview.
Now, Mrs. Mock-Yen, you have been an integral part of many of the creative and innovative ideas, not just in art and theatre, but also at the university campus, notably the Library of the Spoken Word. Mm-hmm. You were the person who spearheaded that whole thing, a way of ensuring that the region's history and culture are recorded for posterity. Mm-hmm. What led you to start the Library of the Spoken Word?
Well, to be truthful, I didn't start it. How it started was that Hugh Morrison, who was the staff tutor in radio education before I was, he never threw away anything, not a single thing. If it was a half-inch of tape, he would put it in an envelope and preserve it. I mean, he was a maniac where it came to holding on to pieces of tape, reels of tape, boxes of tape. So when we moved from an old hut, which is where the Hugh Shearer Center, Trade Union Education Institute now is, it used to be an old hut, and that was where we had our extramural. When we got our nice new building and we were moving over, he had to dump some of the stuff, but he carried all the boxes with him, the boxes that you buy the tapes in. And I remember lining them up because I thought, my Lord, my nice new studio is going to look so untidy with all these boxes. But anyway, I lined them up on the floor, and then eventually I labeled them, sorted through, and scrapped some. He didn't know. But the ones that I thought would be useful, I kept. And they were there for years. And then when I became staff tutor now, and Rex was pro-vice chancellor, I said to Rex, this doesn't make sense. This is history. A tape with Her Majesty the Queen in 1953, speaking on the campus for the first time, is not something you throw away. And it's not something you put in a box and leave on the floor either. And I insisted that we have a library. And Rex was always accommodating. He did help me to get a library constructed and nice shelves and all these tapes. And that just grew. More and more tapes of consequence and of interest until I thought, well, let's give it a name. It can't just be REU Library. And I remember chatting with Ivy Baxter, and she said, she was in, I think, Switzerland or Sweden, one of them. And she remembered going to a place named the Library of the Spoken Word. And I said, don't say another word, that is it. And I called the people, I said, make me a sign, Library of the Spoken Word, which they did, plastered it all over the wall. And that was how the Library of the Spoken Word came into being. It is not now under the same name, because it has been moved into what is known as the archives, the university archives in their nice fancy building, and they're using technology to collapse what would have been a whole box of tapes onto one little gadget and so on. So I'm glad that somebody is holding on to the history, because we Jamaicans are not possessed of a great love for history, especially our own. So I think a lot will survive.
We're talking to Alma Mock-Yen, who is 90 years old. When we come back, we'll talk about her work in edutainment, using radio to teach while entertaining. Morning Coffee Guest will be right back. Welcome back to Morning Coffee Guest. I'm Carol Francis. Our guest today, Alma Mock-Yen, a successful radio producer of Edutainment, that is, programs that interteach using drama to make audiences laugh or cry, depending on what it is. And she is the consummate professional, the expert at that. You started a series when they were talking about teaching people about diabetes, the Diabetic Association of Jamaica, and they reached out to you and you came up with an innovative series.
Kuwait debate. It was the time of the Kuwait incident worldwide, and I got the characters to say we called it Kuwait debate because our counsel, every time we said to him, we don't like the name Slime Lane, please change it. And he said, oh, Kuwait, let's wait. And so they renamed it Kuwait TV. That was their explanation. And it's just one of those things. It told very important lessons about diabetes, not by teaching straightforwardly, but by showing how the characters responded, either not paying attention to what they were told about too much sugar, etc., etc., but they eventually, one character who was a very indulgent big fat guy, he died because of diabetes neuropathy or whatever the medical term is. But the thing, apart from it, it was told with a great deal of humor, of course, lots of laughs. But the important thing is that the drama provided a reference point for the diabetes specialist, who was Dr. Harold Morrison. And it was wonderful of him to come off his academic high horse and deal with these funny characters, you know, and say to the listening public, now you'll see what Sugarfoot is doing. Sugarfoot was a young footballer, but he was diabetic. He said Sugarfoot should never do that. As a diabetic, he should have done so and so and so. So Errol Morrison really got right into the meat of things. And people seem to have liked that, because his separation between the haves and the have-nots was suddenly disbanded, and the people warmed to it. And Carl Stone, the late Carl Stone, when he did a survey, he found that although Coete Bay was broadcast, not every week, but on alternate weeks, that was all the time the station would give us, it had very high listenership. And he thought that that meant its reach and its impact was tremendous for something that was competing against pop music and so on.
As you talk about reach and the tremendous reach that Coete Bay, there are other things that you have done that has had a tremendous impact. You were part of a small dedicated group that was involved in distance education at the University of the West Indies. How did you become a part of that, and the changes that have happened since then?
Well, that distance education was really triggered by a German philanthropic group, the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, and they were interested in labor education. Not only in Jamaica now, we're going Caribbean now. And of course they came, we didn't have Carmack yet. Carmack was just coming on stream. So they came to the radio unit first and tried to establish a program that would go around the Caribbean. And so I was selected to go from island to island, with or without the German counterparts, and trying to teach labor education using the infotainment approach. And we did a comic strip about that. I don't remember if it was a series. I think it was just a comic, a regular comic strip. And we had our own little newspaper and so on. It was better received in some parts of the Caribbean than in others. You know, there's a little thing going on between the Caribbean islands, so some of them don't like to think that whatever works wasn't started, didn't have its genesis in their territory. But that aside, that too went very well. The Germans were quite pleased.
And then you
It was called Workers' World.
Workers' World. You also talked about that started just prior to Carmack, but you were one of the lecturers at Carmack, and you were there for a long time.
10 years.
And in that time, you helped to set up, you know, you taught me at Carmack. And one of the things when we were in the radio class, you had something called Radio on the Disaster. It was a play on the word disaster. I suppose talking about us as students being a disaster at some of the stuff that you gave us to do. And out of that has come News Talk. You were somebody who was instrumental in so many areas. How does it make you feel when you pass the university and see News Talk, same place where radio education unit was that you started?
Right. Well, that doesn't mean too much, actually. What will mean a lot is what is News Talk's impact on its listening public, and that I'm not really sure about. And this is not to throw any shadow on News Talk, but simply because there's been such a plethora of radio stations that I've lost count. I mean, I come from when we had one RJR and rediffusion, Radio Jamaica and rediffusion. Now, how many we have? About 15? So I'm totally lost. So I don't know whether I'm listening to News Talk or JNN or PBQ or PBS or whatever. There are just so many. I think, in fact, if you ask my opinion, which nobody has, which is why I'm willing to offer it, I think we just have too many. And I can think of one major television station that seems to have lost its way completely. And I think it's just the need to compete, just the need to grab onto the precious dollar that is making people lose what they really should be about. And that is the education and the entertainment and the upliftment of their public. I think that is being lost, and that is rather sad. But some of my students are doing pretty well, like Cliff Hughes. I like what he's doing. He's hanging on to the old principles of media and what it should stand for.
You have written a book that deals with your recollection of radio and radio broadcasting in Jamaica. It's the first known collection of historical highlights of Jamaica's media landscape. What has been the response to that book?
Darling girl, I haven't got a clue. After it was printed, the printer took over, never heard from her again. And all I know is that very frequently people ask me, do I have copies? No, I don't have copies. I think you can get copies from
Amazon
or whatever. I don't even know what the cost is. But I think it is valuable in that media people will write about media, but never about themselves. And that is one book that writes about media people.
My guest today, Alma Mock-Yen. We'll be right back. You're watching Morning Coffee Guest. When it comes to communication, we all tend to think we're pretty good at it. The truth is, even those of us who are good communicators aren't nearly as good as we think we are. A great communicator is Alma Mock-Yen. She's able to connect emotionally with those she interacts with. Now, Mrs. Mock-Yen, you're an outstanding trainer in broadcast journalism. And as you talked about the person that you have trained, Gillian Horton, Marlene Stevenson-Daly, Cliff Hughes, me, and I tell people my first interaction with you was before I got to your class. I was told, "Is a dragon lady, careful,"
Yes.
and everything. And she walks around with a ruler and whatever. So I was so scared before I got into the class. And you gave us all something to read. And mine, when I saw it, I thought I was going to die. It had to do something with sex. And I'm like, how am I going to read this? And when I finished reading it, you said, "Lad, it's the first somebody ever makes sex sound bad." And I tell you, the tears started to roll. And I had a crush on this, I won't say who. And he turned around and handed me a handkerchief, and it made it worse. I was mortified. And then I decided I'm going to drop the course. So I came and said, "You know what happened, Mrs. Mock-Yen? I think I need to do another course." And before I could finish, you said, "Shut up your mouth and come to the class. It starts at 2. So I went to class. And I am so grateful to you for what you have done in terms of helping to shape my life and my career. You made me understand that you can achieve, and you gave me the tools to try to make sure we do achieve.
Determination.
Right. But you recently spoke of the need to reshape the training methods of broadcast journalists to include social media. Mm-hmm. Why?
Well, a personal reason is that I spend a lot of time on Facebook. And I'm seeing the impact that at least that arm of social media is having. I'm also seeing rather negative things that happen. You know, there's an accident. Before the police gets there, before any journalist gets there, 40 people have pictures from different angles, and they can give you accounts, some of which are not necessarily even with a smattering of truth. So it's as if now we are not simply on a journey to find truth, which is always difficult, but to sort out so many possible truths that if we don't train differently, the old principles will not really cover the gaps. And social media is a blessing and an enormous curse.
Yeah, but you know, the whole issue of fake news, accuracy, attribution, intellectual property, copyright, these are all issues that we now have to deal with. Sometimes you speak to people about it, they take offense because they think you're being critical. But that is the way the industry is going. You have to understand, or else you get yourself into serious trouble.
Serious trouble.
You have been awarded, and there are many accolades that have been given to you for your work in theater, radio, in every area. You received the Order of Distinction Commander Class from the government and people of Jamaica in 2003 for your work in broadcasting. And one of the things that most people will tell you if you say Alma Mock-Yen, you remember the ruler? The wit. You have a wonderful sense of humor. That persons who don't know you might take offense, and those who do laugh uproariously because you are very funny. But it's all something that is truthful, and that is the thing that I must say to you. And I'm glad I have the opportunity to say to you that you have been so truthful in everything that you do, not because you want to destroy, but because you want to build. And that is something that I must say thank you for.
All right, Carol, I have always said, I started teaching when I was 14. And I taught a boy who was 19 years old, who could just barely read, an East Indian fellow from way up near Constant Spring. But I was teaching in a church school where they tried to help people, those who had come to education late, those who had other problems. So that was where I got my grounding as a teacher. And I've always said that I don't aim to teach people, I aim to touch them. Now some people I touched lightly, because that's all they needed. But some people I had to literally sit on them, because they needed that too. And it's funny, you know, people who have cursed me to my face. And I've sort of looked and laughed, because I know years later they are going to think about it and rethink the positions. And it's always happened. They've either written or they've met me and said, you know, I'm sorry for what I said. And I took what you said very unkindly, but now I can understand. And I say, sure, no sweat. That's how it is. You have been touched.
Thank you, you don't have to sit on me.
Yes, some people are just not sit upon a bone. Because no matter what you do, you get a sense that you're fighting a losing battle. Mm-hmm. But I don't give up easily. Determination, we spoke earlier. What was my driver? And it was the determination I got from Grandpa. You never give up. Plus, I'm a Scorpio person. And Scorpios don't give up easily. And when they give up, Lord have mercy, it's tears and grief of the deepest dye. Accepting that you have failed is very, very hard for me.
But you know, you have succeeded at so many things. You've succeeded in your career, and you have succeeded as a gardener. Your garden is amazing.
Oh, yes.
You spend a lot of, even at radio unit, I remember the days when you were there, you were planting up, and if we even step on a leaf, you would crucify us.
Yeah.
And you have spent a lot of time in your garden, and you talk about
my orchids.
What is horticultural therapy? What is that?
That is a term I think I got from Professor Auger, who was also is also a keen gardener. Horticultural therapy is working with plants, watching them grow. Like a medical person, you have to heal their illnesses, and in doing that, you're growing yourself and you're healing your own ailments. Very often they are emotional ones, but a good place to heal an emotional problem is in a garden. Even if you're taking a walk in a garden, like walking through the Chinese garden at home, that experience enriches your soul.
You're 90 years old, Mrs. Mock-Yen, and I keep saying it because I want to live, to be 90 and to live like you.
Well,
to be able to do everything.
100.
I'll come visit you then.
Yes, please.
What I want to know is, how would you like to be remembered? Somebody says Alma Mock-Yen. What is it that you want them to think of when you hear Alma Mock-Yen?
I don't know. But I think laughter. I don't know. Just laugh.
Mama, see, come. You as a golden age have to contribute something to the golden ages cultural program. What are you going to do first, Mama? See, come.
I knew with some amount of cynicism that my aria has not been allowed to conclude. But far be it from me to hinder the lumpen the proletariat.
Miss Barra, is me she calling love?
No, ma see, no peer in mind, man. Go stay, Chino. Come, what you going to do first? Come, what's an item to no man?
Well, it's a long time I never do it in front of people's, but I did learn it into the schoolyard.
Not that one, Mama, see, not that one. Hello, please, daughter. Give the young girl a chance to contribute to the cultural program now.
Culture, my eye. Hurry up!
You can't hurry up culture. You think culture come out of battle? Already you hear, Miss Baba.
You want to beat me, play the
No.
drum?
Not that one, Mama, see, not that one.
Not that one, another one, and more mother and one.
Take it easy, Mama. No bother with the bow, just go on.
A little age.
Young girl.
Tarzan. Tarzan into the jungle. All the belly ache. Looking for the lavatory. Too late.
Revolting! Oh, as my late husband would say, répondez, s'il vous plaît.
You believe?
Oh, you ought to be ashamed
Share,
of
Mamma said,
yourself.
the whole of in here we do no knife and fork talk and say it is culture. Well, all heaps of people out there use the same judging talk when me use. And that is culture too. But I wonder how could you exist.
Suck it to her, Mama.
And don't you head her on, Miss Barbara.
What do you do?
What do you mean, don't head her on?
And you, Mama, see, you don't have someone else to do some more.
No.
Put a stop to her. Now.
What do you mean? Put stop to what? You can't put a stop to the truth. No more than you can stop a plane in the sky. And furthermore, besides, you have plane for passenger and plane for freight. And life is up and life is down. But life is never straight.
Thank you for staying with us here today on Morning Coffee Guest, our very special guest, living legend, ageless beauty, Alma Mock-Yen.